Good Shabbos, everyone, and Chag Sameach. The story is told on a Southwest Airlines flight from Atlanta. A middle-aged, well-to-do woman found herself sitting next to a man wearing a kippah. She called the attendant over to complain about her seating. "What seems to be the problem, madam?" asked the flight attendant. "You sat me next to a Jew. I can't possibly sit next to this disgusting man. Find me another seat." "Please calm down, madam," the attendant replied. "The flight is very full today, but I'll see what I can do. I'll go and check to see if we have any seats available in business or first class." The woman shoots a snooty look at the snubbed Jewish man beside her. A few minutes later, the attendant returns. The woman cannot help but look at the people around her with a smug and self-satisfied grin. The flight attendant then says, "Madam, unfortunately, as I suspected, economy is full. I've spoken to the cabin services director, and business is also full. However, we do have one seat in first class." Before the lady had a chance to respond, the attendant continues, "It is most extraordinary to make this kind of upgrade. However, I had to get special permission from the captain. But given the circumstances, the captain felt that it was outrageous that someone should be forced to sit next to such a person." The flight attendant turns to the Jewish man sitting next to her and said, "So if you'd like to get your things, sir, I have your seat in first class ready for you." The lady responds angrily, "I think the captain must have made some kind of mistake." To which the captain replies, "No, ma'am, Captain Cohen never makes mistakes." Maybe a true story at some point in the history of the Jewish people. Yes, how do people identify us? And how do we identify ourselves? Not just as Jews, but as grandparents, parents, children, spouses, and caretakers. As we prepare to end our holiday of redemption, there's much we can learn about identity from the generation that left Mitzrayim, that left Egypt. You may recall that the generation that left Egypt, those who directly witnessed the miracles of the plagues and the splitting of the sea, was not the same generation that ended and entered the land of Israel. The generation of the slaves could not do it. They were unable to fully let go of their identity as slaves. One 19th century rabbi said that when the Torah reads that God liberated our people with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, that the hand was to take us out and the arm was to help keep us from going back. Yes, we quickly read in the Torah that the Jews wanted to return to Egypt. It was slavery, but it was safe. It was what they knew. It was how they identified themselves. In order for the generation of the slaves to have been able to enter the land of Israel, a paradigm shift of identity from slavery to freedom was needed. And unfortunately, the wilderness generation was ultimately unable to escape their slave identity. They were forever imprisoned by it, despite being physically freed from their Egyptian slave owners. The generation of this wilderness suffered from a slave complex cultivated during centuries of Egyptian slavery. Having lived their entire lives as slaves to their Egyptian masters, they could not see beyond this and were imprisoned by their subconscious subservience. And without a new expanded identity, lasting change was not possible, and they never ever experienced what it means to truly be free. My friend Alana Amfel makes the following point. So it is the same for many of us today. Yes, many of us strive to make lasting change in our daily lives, whether it's in our relationships, our physical bodies, our finances, or our happiness and mental states. What we may not realize is that in order to create lasting change in any of those areas, there needs to be what's called an identity shift. Unfortunately, behaviors and goals alone are not enough to make change permanent, because the strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. For example, we have a goal to lose weight, but we see ourselves as someone who is overweight. Our identity will triumph every time. That's how we see ourselves, even if it's an identity that does not serve us well. If we believe we are something, that belief of who we are will color our behavior for the rest of our lives. The Jews were stuck in their slave mentality, just as we may be stuck with some identities we may want to rid ourselves of. This month of Nisan, this beautiful Jewish month, a month of miracles, during which our holiday of Passover falls, is commonly referred to as the month of redemption. And in the Gemara it states, in Nisan they were redeemed, in Nisan they will be redeemed. The lesson of the generation of the wilderness still applies today. We each hold identities and beliefs that inhibit us from making lasting change. And by investigating them at this time of year, during this holiday of Passover, the tradition reminds us we can forge new identities that will set us free and bring us the quality of life we desire and deserve. My colleague, Rabbi David Wolpe, reminds us that during the Seders, we read about the 4 children. And the wise child, in the Torah, where his question is derived from, his question is preceded by the words, when your child will ask you tomorrow. The wise child's question isn't about yesterday, it's about tomorrow. He's the wise child. And all of us, especially as we get older, we tend to dwell in the past. We want things to be what we remembered them to be. But the wise child knows better than all. The wise child knows it's not about the past. It's about tomorrow. And what is more important than remembering the story of Passover is repeating it to your children because they are tomorrow. And as we get older, yes, it becomes more of a struggle to remember that ultimately it's about tomorrow. Yes, we can and should cherish what has been. We should remember where we came from, pay honor to those who've gone before us. But our job, our task, no matter our age, no matter our state, no matter where we are in our lives, our challenge and our charge, our destiny, our creativity, our honor is to create what will still be. No, it's not easy to leave our past. We struggle. Part of us wishes that we could relive our best moments from our past, especially with those we loved. But when we try to live in the past, we can be stuck forever. Time and our tradition reminds us and often forces us to forge new identities based on new realities. Personally, I know a major change is coming for me. How will I change my identity from being an involved father with 3 teens at home to becoming an empty nester? I've had a little practice. As my children became teenagers, especially my daughter, they wanted nothing to do with me. But there are still those moments when I still get them in a moment of weakness, and they'll accept an invitation for a lunch, or a walk to the park, or a walk with the dogs. And it's not easy, but I try to remember that it's a natural part of life. Or as a friend recently reminded me when his last child left for college, he told me, Brian, as sad as I am, I'd be a lot sadder if my kids weren't going off to college and were still living at home. And I remember those things, and I'll remember what my friend told me. But I often find that many of us, including myself, have a difficult time forging new identities when time moves on, and especially, and more importantly, when we lose someone we loved. Many of us go from being a caring and nurturing spouse to having no one to care for anymore. Others are fully devoted to their parents, They're there almost every day, helping in countless ways. Then one day, their loved ones are gone. Others take care of children, siblings, good friends, grandparents. We do everything we can, as we should, to be there for them. And then one day, they're gone. And it's understandable how difficult it can be to forge ahead and create new identities. We know deep down that our loved ones would want us to move on. But it's not easy. We miss them. We feel lonely. We miss taking care of those closest to us. I have found through my own experiences and through experiences with so many of you that it's easier to forge a new identity if we take the following steps. Number one, talk about the challenge. All of us can share in this struggle. So open up. Talk about it with your friends, your family, your rabbis, people that you know that have experienced similar challenges. There's nothing good about bottling up those emotions, but instead, talking openly about them. You never know who you can learn from, what advice you'll glean from a conversation with someone at shul, someone at work, someone in the neighborhood. Number two, when you're able at times to move on and find moments of happiness, get rid of any guilt. We Jews know guilt. There's nothing wrong with moving on. The tradition even tells us that after we lose a spouse, yes, we should wait before we date anyone else. We should wait until we get married if we choose to get married again. But the tradition says after a cycle of 3 festival holidays, a cycle of Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, then it's okay to get remarried. And I've often found that our tradition reminds us of this because our tradition does want us to go on. It sets up a rule for us. Wait those 3 festival holidays. Wait about a year, and then it's okay. God says it's okay. And I believed our loved ones would want us to find joy again. And number 3, learn from those who have done it, who have successfully modeled for us. There are so many extraordinary people in this congregation who've lost dear ones, children, siblings, spouses, parents, tragic losses. But yet I'm often in awe of these incredible people who continue to serve as role models for all of us, continue to be involved in our community, continuing to give so much to others, to continue to find so much meaning in their Jewish lives. For the wilderness generation of long ago, the cost of being locked into their slave identity was dying in the desert. For us today, will we do the same? And yes, it's easy to blame external circumstances such as COVID-19, change or uncertainty, challenging relationships, work, and more for our struggles of staying in that slave identity. But ultimately, at times such as this, on holidays such as Passover, it's up to us to overcome these challenges and, if need be, create new identities. Your rabbis are there for you, your community is there for you, and your tradition is there for you as well. Hag Kasher v'Sameach. Let it all be a good and continuous joyous holiday for all of us. Shabbat Shalom.